Hi, today I'm going to explain a horror movie called Grafted. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in China with a girl named Wei drawing a flower she noticed in her father's diary. Her scientist father explains that it's a corpse flower, a rare plant that emits an odor to attract flies. We then notice that both the father and daughter have a large scar on their cheeks. However, Dad excitedly informs Wei that he has invented something that will make them beautiful. Next, he removes a piece of rat skin and injects it with a liquid he has created. He then places the skin on his cheek and watches on as it miraculously heals his scar. Dad is overjoyed that his experiment was successful, but things take a terrifying turn when his skin begins to regenerate rapidly. It eventually covers his mouth, and when he desperately cuts it off with a scalpel, it grows back. Upon seeing this, Wei panics and tries to help her dad. She begins stabbing him to remove the excess skin, but unfortunately ends up killing him in the process. The scene then cuts to many years later, where Wei has grown into a young adult and is a genius like her father. I don't know if I'd call him a genius after what I just saw. She currently lives with her relatives who don't treat her kindly and consider her a weirdo. One day, Wei gets a scholarship opportunity to study at a university in New Zealand. She accepts the offer without hesitation and decides to start her life anew. In the next scene, Wei arrives in New Zealand and is picked up by her dad's sister, Aunt Ling. The lady is overjoyed to see her, and they have an emotional reunion. On the way home, Aunt Ling informs Wei that she is separated from her husband and lives with her daughter Angela. She also reveals that she is often away for work, so there will only be Wei and Angela in the house. Upon arriving home, Aunt Ling introduces Wei to Angela, who casually greets her. Wei then heads to her room, where she sets up a shrine for her late father and speaks with him. The next morning, she arrives for her first day at university and encounters a homeless and disfigured man named John. She asks him for directions to the science building, which he provides. The two then introduce themselves before Wei leaves for her class. In the next scene, we see a science professor named Dr. Paul delivering a lecture. Angela, who turns out to be popular, is sitting with her best friends Eve and Jasmine, while Wei is alone in the back. Paul then distributes the test results, which reveal that Wei is the only one with a score of 100, surprising the other students. "New girl, not dumb, but we're all dumb. We're all gone." After classes, Wei goes to the science lab and tries to continue her research using her father's old notebook. Paul asks what she's doing, and she timidly apologizes for intruding. He then notices the notebook written in Chinese, and Wei explains that it was her father's research, which she's trying to complete again. The professor is impressed by her dedication and offers her a position as his lab assistant. He states if she does well, he may allow her to work on her research. Wei is thrilled by the opportunity and immediately accepts. After she leaves, Paul conducts some internet research on her father and discovers that he was working on a skin grafting experiment. The next day, Wei notices Angela, Eve, and Jasmine hanging out and approaches them. Angela isn't happy to see her, but reluctantly introduces her to the others. Wei then invites them for lunch to try her favorite Chinese dishes. The girls are initially hesitant, but they eventually agree. During the meal, Wei seems very happy and takes a selfie with the girls, but they aren't pleased. Angela appears to be embarrassed by her cousin and refuses to eat anything. In the end, both she and Eve rudely walk away without touching the food. Only Jasmine feels bad for Wei, and she tries some of the food before leaving. Food's delicious. What are they doing? On the way home, Wei comes across John again, and they chat for a while. She tells him about her scars and claims she's working on something that will help disfigured people like them, but John kindly assures her that she's beautiful just as she is. Later, Wei is approached by Paul, who offers her a ride home. He tells her that he is excited about her research and believes they can accomplish great things if they collaborate. He suggests that they can immediately get to work the next morning, which excites Wei. In the following days, Paul and Wei work together to conduct experiments, but they fail to achieve any significant results. Wei concludes that all they need is a binding agent to merge the skin tissue, but she doesn't know what it is. Glue? No. Tape. Stop trying. The only ones I can think of. This leaves Paul deeply frustrated, and he begins to suspect that the entire project might be in vain. One day, while they are working, Jasmine arrives and asks Paul if he is hiring a lab assistant. He not only says yes, but ends up replacing Wei without any hesitation. Later, while heading home, Jasmine approaches Wei and claims that she wasn't trying to steal her position. She also encourages Wei to stop hiding her cheeks with a scarf and assures her that she is beautiful. Her words touch Wei, and she realizes that Jasmine is a kind person, unlike her friends. Shortly after, Wei's attention shifts to a picture of a corpse flower. This sparks an idea in her mind, and she breaks into a nursery that evening to steal those flowers. She hopes these flowers will be the binding agent she has been looking for. Later that night, Wei returns to the lab and begins experimenting with the flowers. In the other room, we see Paul being intimate with Eve, which reveals that they're dating, or he's just using her to try to get a binding agent out of himself. Wei removes a section of her skin from her thigh and mixes it with the solution she has created. She then reattaches the skin to her thigh and injects the substance into the area. To her utter surprise, the skin begins to meld together as if it's healing. Shortly after, Paul and Eve notice Wei's presence in another room, so he goes to confront her. Wei tells him excitedly about the corpse flower and how she was able to create the perfect formula. But when she shows him her thighs, Eve misunderstands the situation and takes a picture of the moment. She then pulls Wei away, claiming that they are having a girls' night. Wei accidentally leaves her father's diary behind in her haste. Paul notices this and calls a friend to ask for help translating the writings. Moments later, Angela receives a picture from Eve in which Wei is showing her thighs to the professor. This enrages her, and she immediately rushes home to confront her cousin, but can't find her. Elsewhere, Eve takes Wei to a secluded location and scolds her for trying to seduce her boyfriend. Wei insists she doesn't have that kind of relationship with Paul, but the arrogant girl doesn't buy it. Eve then leaves Wei stranded in the middle of nowhere and drives off. Hours later, Wei finally returns home on foot and finds an incensed Angela waiting for her. She is devastated to learn that her father's shrine has been destroyed. Angela then accuses Wei of sleeping with the professor and refuses to hear any explanation. An argument erupts between them, which soon escalates into a physical fight. Angela eventually gains the upper hand and pins Wei to the ground before choking her. In a desperate act of self-defense, Wei grabs a chopstick from nearby and stabs Angela in the eye, which ends up killing her. Too bad she's not white and stupid like the rest of them. She wouldn't have known how to use that thing. In the aftermath, Wei immediately regrets her actions, but tells herself that she can still fix this. She drags Angela to the bathroom and removes a thin layer of skin from her face. She injects it with the substance she created and then applies it to her own face. The substance takes effect and she soon undergoes a transformation, taking on Angela's appearance. Those are some powerful flowers. Wei is thrilled to see her new face and comments on how pretty she has become. When Aunt Ling arrives home, she assumes Wei to be her daughter and suspects nothing. Wei feels proud of what she has accomplished and decides to live as Angela from now on. The next morning, she heads to university pretending to be Angela and enjoys the newfound popularity and attention. She hangs out with Eve and Jasmine, who also don't notice anything different. Wei accidentally uses a 3-syllable word at one point, but fortunately her friends don't even know what she's saying. After classes, Wei goes on a date with Angela's boyfriend to a secluded spot in the woods. He declares his love for her, and Wei, who has never had a boyfriend before, pretends to go along. The two begin making out, but suddenly Angela's face slips off and falls onto the guy. He is shocked to see Wei's real face and begins to panic. He tries to run away, but in his haste, stumbles too far and falls off the cliff. Wei is horrified by the unexpected turn of events and rushes back to the house. Upon returning home, Wei uses the remaining substance to stick Angela's face back onto her own. She then realizes that the liquid is running low and desperately searches for her father's notebook to recreate the formula. She can't find it anywhere and eventually concludes that Paul must have taken it. Wei calls the professor multiple times, but he doesn't answer. This makes her realize he intends to use her dad's formula and then take full credit for the invention. The next day, Wei comes up with an idea and invites Eve to her house for a sleepover. When they arrive, Eve comments on the foul odor in the house, but Wei dismisses it as coming from her weird cousin's shrine. Eve soon realizes that something is wrong and nervously says she wants to leave, but Wei suddenly grabs an object and attempts to smash her head with it. A terrified Eve rushes outside and hides hides in the pond in front of the house. However, Wei eventually catches up to her and plunges a drill machine into the water. She then drills into Eve's skull and gruesomely murders her. Afterward, Wei removes Eve's skin and places it on her face. She even dyes her hair blonde to look like her. The next day at the university, Wei notices several cops looking for Angela after her boyfriend is found dead. This makes her nervous, and she immediately returns to the house. In the evening, Wei chops off the bodies of the two girls and throws them into the pond. She then checks Eve's phone and discovers the compromising photo that's been taken a few days ago in the lab. Wei immediately sends the photo to campus authorities, alleging that the professor has been sleeping with a student. This completely ruins Paul's reputation, and he is fired from his job. However, he is not too disappointed, as he's on the verge of making a scientific breakthrough that could change the world. In the next scene, Paul is seen working on the substance, and after several attempts, he finally achieves the ideal formula. He then texts his girlfriend Eve and informs her about his success. Paul invites her so that they can celebrate, but he's completely unaware that it is Wei who has read the text. Shortly afterwards, Wei, disguised as Eve, visits his home in search of her father's diary. Paul takes an expensive bottle of wine from a hidden compartment, and Wei notices where he keeps his valuables. While he is distracted, she opens the compartment and discovers a vial of the substance he created. She then pretends to have a headache and hurries out of the house with the vial. Afterward, Paul senses something is wrong and checks the compartment. He is shocked to find the vial missing, but doesn't worry too much since he still has the notebook. He then puts the pieces together and manages to figure out that the girl from earlier wasn't Eve, but Wei. She must have just been wearing her face. Upon returning home, Wei removes her disguise and changes into her real self. She is soon visited by Jasmine, who is concerned because she cannot find Angela or Eve. Wei claims that the two of them are at a sleepover, and Jasmine easily believes her. However, when the latter opens the refrigerator for a drink, she is horrified to find the mutated head of Eve. Before Jasmine can process this horrifying sight, Wei wraps her head with plastic and suffocates her to death. Sometime later, Paul arrives at the house and finds a distressed Wei. He asks her what she has done, and Wei responds that it's his fault for stealing her dad's work, but Paul doesn't care about ethics. He's just happy to have made a groundbreaking discovery that will make him a billionaire. He claims that she was just his lab assistant, and as the lead scientist, all the credit rightfully goes to him. Paul then asks for his vial, so Wei tells him it's in the fridge. He excitedly opens it, only to be horrified by the sight of Eve's mutilated head, and just like before, she takes advantage of the distraction and stabs him in the neck with a needle, rendering him unconscious. In the next scene, we see Paul lying on a table with the skin of his neck shaved off. Wei applies a new piece of skin to his neck and injects him with the substance. This causes his body to spiral into uncontrollable tissue regeneration, much like what happened to her father. Paul starts screaming in agony, "Stop! Stop, don't have too much skin," which is soon heard by an old neighboring woman. Wei then drops a straw into his throat to keep him alive while he is slowly consumed by the regenerating skin. Shortly after, the neighboring lady arrives at her house and is horrified to see Wei torturing Paul. She fortunately manages to run away before the psycho can catch her. Now that her cover has been blown, Wei decides to escape from there. She runs aimlessly through the town while the police begin to pursue her. At one point, Wei ends up in the subway station with no clue where to hide. She fortunately meets John, the homeless man she met outside her university. She begs him to hide her under his blanket, and he agrees to help. However, in her haste, the vial Wei is carrying ruptures, spilling the liquid. It reacts with their skin and causes a grotesque merging of their two bodies, which leaves them fused together. In the next scene, we see that some time has passed, and Wei, who is accused of multiple homicides, is still missing. Angela, Eve, and Jasmine's bodies are discovered, while Paul is left in critical condition. One evening, Aunt Wang, who is still grieving, notices someone on the street who looks like Wei. She stops the girl, but is disappointed to find that it is someone else. Aunt Ling then notices a homeless person in a parking lot with a blanket over their head. It turns out to be a horrifying hybrid of John and Wei, with 4 eyes and disturbingly misplaced features. The scary sight frightens Aunt Ling, who runs away screaming as the movie comes to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.